Today I want to talk about one of my most favorite things when it comes to painting, and that's progress. This is probably the most important aspect to me, even above creativity, because progress is the motor which creates your confidence, it creates your momentum, it creates your satisfaction with your own paintings, and therefore keeps you going. Progress is actually, for me, the most fundamental driver of what you do, why you do it, and the satisfaction that you get. A lot of people talk about creativity, and I get it. Creativity is really important, but it is the confidence that you get through the progress that allows you to be creative. I 100% believe that. Yet a lot of people, they are trying to create good paintings. They actually try to create a good painting. Did anybody tell you that to get the better paintings, you stop trying? Sometimes I actually wonder because a lot of people are actually really going to a lot of effort to try and create the better painting. So what I want to do today is go through a little bit of the mechanics to ensure that your progress starts developing. And again, as your progress starts developing, so does your confidence, so do your skills. And when your skills and your confidence go up, so does your creativity. It allows you to be freer when you paint. It allows you to take risks. It allows you to do all the things that actually create a better painting. The person who is over careful, over planning, overthinking, and I would say even hesitating a lot in their paintings, it shows. All right, it absolutely shows. It shows and it doesn't convince the spectator. So by trying to do really hard, we control and we contrive our paintings to the point where you no longer feel anything about them. You no longer feel when you're the spectator. You no longer believe. You're no longer convinced. So I believe that if we raise our progression, so if we progress with our paintings, we raise our level, that raise in level should correspond to pretty much the same sort of increase in confidence, which then will carry you to the next step where you raise again, because now you're confident to take a little bit more risks. You're confident that you do actually have the ability to pull off a better painting, which gives you more confidence, which helps you improve more and brings you more confidence. And it's just this spiral that goes up. The spiral goes down. However, if you're trying to get good results and you're trying a little bit too hard to actually correct your paintings and over-intellectualize them. So I have a subject that I thought I'd just play with today, to be honest. It's a subject that I did in one of my live sessions. And I thought that I'd take this subject and I'd redo a very quick sketch of this subject to show you how, not just how when you loosen up you get a better painting, but even when you choose complicated subjects. This mechanism, this way of painting, won't just give you confidence, won't just see you progress, but actually allows you to paint more complex paintings, which then gives you more satisfaction, because when you've produced a better painting, which is what you may perceive to be a harder subject, you're like, wow, did I do that? And that's why I think we just start moving up and up and up. So the goal of this is to increase your quality of painting, increase your satisfaction, increase your progress. Let's start painting. Okay, for this painting, I'm working on Arches 300 grams, the cold pressed. The paper is actually quite important, but to be perfectly honest, I could do this painting on a hot press paper or even on a cellulose paper, because I want to paint this in a very direct manner. I want it to be fresh. I want it to be lively. So to be perfectly honest, whatever paper you have, you should actually be able to get a pretty good result with this. So the first thing is obviously drawing. My whole goal of this subject is the feel. It's not to represent the buildings, to represent the people, to even represent, the style of architecture or the country that this scene is in, which I can't even tell you where it is. And to be perfectly honest, this is just an image that I got off the internet. So I wasn't there. I don't know the scene. I just like the photo. You'll find this photo. If you look on the internet, you may find it. This is actually an image that I found on Pinterest. Pinterest for those that are looking for images is a good source. Just be careful not to literally take images and then create paintings that you sell. I often take paintings from my workshops there. But just be careful that you're not just actually taking these and then reproducing paintings, because you could actually come up with some copyright issues. Now I'm going to simplify, because this is going to be quick. I was going to say painless, fun. But what I'm after, let's go a little bit here, is just the feel. So I'm really not interested in the whole complication of the subject. I'm just basically recreating it my way with an idea that I have. And as you can see, I'm just making up buildings, simplifying them so that my painting will be the overall scene, not necessarily an exact replica of the scene that I'm looking at. So getting the basics down will be enough, and getting the mood is actually far more important to me than to get the exact how many windows up the top, how many windows down the bottom. And I think that's one of the most important things when you're painting, and particularly if you're trying to improve your level. Don't get stuck down in details when it comes to drawing, when it comes to the subject, because you're just going to tighten your painting. And most people, what they say is that they want to create looser paintings, more creative paintings, express themselves more. And that's where, when you overdraw or you're looking to be too perfect when it comes to the drawing, you're going to tighten your painting. So loosen up the drawing to loosen up the painting. Okay, so here we go. Subject. I'm not even going to worry about this bit. It's not interesting me at all. I'm coming all the way down to my road level. Just I'm losing the whole middle part of the building. This, I want it to be quick, fast. By quick, fast, quick and fast is the same thing, Jenny. You know what I mean. I want it to be fun, dynamic, moving. I don't want to get bogged down into stuff. So I'm actually getting rid of stuff. These buildings on the side just don't need them. I will raise them because this just looks too small. It looks too small. It looks too tiny. And so I'll bring this up and I'll just make up something there. Bring this across. I do like this bit over here. And this is where all my people and my road is coming into. Okay, so simple, complicated subjects need to be simplified. Simplify them, and hopefully you know how you want to simplify them. All of these are things that I teach in my courses. So if you do have a problem when it comes to simplifying your subjects and knowing how to construct the painting, jump on one of my Monday lives or one of my courses, because honestly, you shouldn't be blocked with these sort of things. Okay, so that's it. That's my subject. You'll see it a little bit better as the my drawing's actually quite light as the paint comes on. But you see that I'm creating something loose, something free, hopefully to match the kind of painting that I'm looking at creating. So I'm going to start adding in. I'm no longer looking at the subject. I looked at the subject just to get the base in. I'm not interested in, exactly where the door is and exactly, how high this is. I'm looking at the mood. This is a person, this little thing all the way down here that you can't see very well. Okay, that's a person. And I'm going to have loads more people basically at this level here. This is the bottom of my buildings, bottom of the buildings here, bottom of the buildings here. And there we go. Okay, so I've broken the subject down into simple shapes. Simple shapes will now hopefully create a very simple way of painting a painting. My light, I want it to come from the left. I want it to light up the left side of my painting, of my subjects, and throw into shadow the right side or the back side of my subject. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is something that I do in my courses, if you follow me all the time, you will know, is I want to create a structure. I call it a structure. It is the actual block that creates the entire scene. So I will just throw that on in the beginning. But my whole goal at the moment with this scene is the life of the subject. So this is what I was talking about. If you start to overthink, overpaint, be, with your little brush trying to get the perfect shape, you're going to tighten up your painting. So loosen it up from the very beginning. Don't start creating tightness and trying to be exact at the beginning of the painting, because it's just going to become more and more tight as you go. It's going to become more and more figurative, more and more over detailed, overworked. Loosen it up. All right. And so this, I'm basically painting where my shadows are. Let's say it like that. It's not always the case, but in this painting it will be. I'm painting where my shadows are. I'm literally just going to paint my shadows, and I'm going to connect shapes to make sure that there's a flow when it comes to my subject. All right, so, and we'll get back to the top bit up here. Let's put on some shadows already when it comes to this little tower up the top. And for this, I'm just using my gold ochre. This is Winsor & Newton. This is gold ochre. It's much warmer than raw sienna. It's a warmer yellow, but it's not as harsh as something like quinacridone gold. I like transparent yellow particularly, but transparent yellow is also actually quite harsh. So for this scene, I prefer a gold ochre. Okay, painting the shadows, creating some sort of movement, some sort of dynamic, and we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep throwing this on, and you're going to see that the painting will paint itself. And I'm going to be making almost no effort, and the subject is going to appear. Okay, why? Because all we're going to focus on is the big shape. This is why painting the structure becomes, I would say, a no-brainer, particularly if you're wanting to improve your paintings, because you get a good painting, even if your technique is perfect, even if your color balance isn't perfect, even if your composition is not perfect, you're going to get a good painting anyway. So loosen it up, focus on the big shape of the painting, not the little details. And then you're going to find that the whole painting is going to eventually start to work, even though it stays very basic. Can you see how it's already coming? All right, so let's continue with this bit over here. My focal point's going to be definitely, I'd say, down here. So closing off this part of the building, and I'm literally doing it monochrome. I'm literally just painting one color. Don't need to, but I, for some reason, decided to. I think it's just talking. Sometimes it's just easier sometimes when you're painting it all. Also, teaching-wise, look at that. Starting to appear, this little bit of color here allows that white facade to stand out a little bit more. Let's start throwing in some color. I'm going to start with some burnt sienna and violet. Whoops, that's too much. And that is going to, I've got too much in my brush. I just put some fresh on the paper, something that I really don't like doing. And at the moment, I keep doing this. I keep putting fresh color on my palette and then starting to paint, and it doesn't. It's not the way I like. I prefer my colors to be a little bit drier on my palette and wetter. Okay, let's just throw stuff in. And again, don't overthink. This is shadow, throw it on. This is my shadow, okay? And don't overwork it, just throw it on. I would like it if this painting, we can finish it in 10 minutes. Let's give it another 10 minutes and let's get it as far as we can, with the goal of being loose, not being perfect, finding basically those loose brush strokes, which give a little bit more expression in the painting, and definitely not overworking the subject. All right. Speed is a big deal when it comes to painting. Let's get the speed in and the looseness of the brush strokes. And look, the shadows are going to start to appear. The shadows are going to appear. This is going to be, that's a big side, so that's going to be a little bit down here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, we're definitely not perfect. We're definitely looser rather than perfect, but the energy should be coming. All right, that's sort of that side. Let's do a little repeat of this color over here, perhaps a little bit in the tops of the roof, a little bit perhaps down. And I'm doing this purposefully very, very with a limited palette, just so that we can focus on the guts of the shapes rather than the details of the subject. All right, all right. Literally throwing it on the paper. Okay, let's go back. Smaller brush. Let's start putting some smaller detail in already. And the already bit is because I wanted to join these little shapes, these little objects, whatever they are, chimneys or Starlink satellites or whatever that you have now in cities. I want them to be attached to the bigger shape. So I'm going to drop them in already so that they are. Okay, little bit by little bit. Let's build this up. Just to bring the illusion of detail more than the actual detail. All right, don't finish it, just suggest it. Okay, grabbing just a little bit of kitchen paper because my paper is flat, which I don't normally paint flat. I normally paint vertically. On screen, my paintings are a little bit flatter than, a lot flatter than at home when I'm painting on my own. So I have puddling. I have this amount of water that just sort of puddles. So I'm just going to lift a little bit of that excess water off. Okay, so far so good. Let's grab something a little bit cooler up here on my palette. This is my ultramarine green shade, just because it doesn't granulate. I will keep this extremely pure. And I'm just going to push back the building behind, just to keep that little bit of depth. I'm just going to push this one back and allow the water to flow from one subject to another. And honestly, we're looking for fusion. Don't stop the color from fusing. We're wanting fusion, we're wanting transparency, we're wanting connection, we're wanting all this stuff. And once it's on the paper, you can move it around. Okay, put it on, let it fuse, let water do its thing, and then just move it around if you need to. All right, let's do the same thing. Same blue, ultramarine green shade, and I will add some of that here on this side. All right, a little bit here, not necessarily a lot, just to get that background happening in here. I can come back in when the paper's dry. I can come back in, straight away, as long as my brush is a little bit drier than the paper. I won't get watermark. All right, so let's throw this in. That line is too continuous. It's a bit boring. So I will grab my little brush in a second and add some detail. It's just too boring. Everything else has got these ups and downs and interesting skyline, and then you get this very dull, boring line. And dull and boring can be useful, but it's not what I'm looking for. So I will break up this line. I will add some stuff again. Starlink is on its way. It's got customers all over the place apparently, and now the sky has changed. A little bit more interesting, a little bit more variation. All right. So this scene is sort of appearing without much effort. I can obviously go back in, I can create stronger shadows, but we can do that after. So I'm going to grab a bigger brush, which is sort of a bigger brush, which is going to hold a little bit more color and a little bit more water. And I'm going to take this burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of purple. And the goal of this, remember, is the freedom of your subject. It's the freedom and not overthinking. So just throw it on. Throw it on. I'm actually probably already out of the painting down here. And to be perfectly honest, this is not dark enough. Let's go back in. a little bit darker. That's it. So that that color's just, that tonal value is darker, which allows this white to stand out a bit more. All right, I'm now going to go back in this shadow side and I'm going to be stronger again. Your tonal values that allow your light to appear. And as you know, when you put the color on, it looks dark, often looks dark. And then as it dries, you lose a lot of the color intensity, but also a lot of the tonal value. So go a little bit too dark. As long as you've got water in your brush, it will be fine. Just don't put a dark dry on. All right, look at that. You see what I mean? So much more interesting because you've got a little bit more contrast, a little bit more guts to it. And now, same brush, same color. I'm just going to bring some of that darker wash up here. So let's go here. Okay. Now I'm going to have some people, so I'm going to leave some head height. I'm not going to paint everywhere here. I raised my my board a little bit and it's moving a little bit. I hope it's not annoying for the camera. I actually raised it, but perhaps it wasn't a good idea. So I'm holding on to it to make it move a little bit less. All right. Get some contrast in. Bring some contrast there. Keep a big brush. Don't get into the niddly little stuff. The goal of this painting is not detail. It's the bigger picture. So just throw the colors on, throw the tonal values on. Allow the paper and the paint to fuse. Allow the colors to do their thing. And you're going to find it's going to become interesting from not a lot at all. Okay? Painting shouldn't be an effort. It should be a pleasure. Shouldn't be overthinking your paintings. You should be feeling them and painting them just with pleasure. Sometimes you do need to have better technique. Sometimes you may need to know a little bit better how to construct your painting. That's something different. So you do need a base. You need to develop your base. But when you have a base which is developing to the level that you feel like you're able to create, then that's when you need to really let go of your paintings. And I really do think, from judging so many competitions so often, that's really where we're at. I really do think that today in watercolor, the level is so high that people should be letting go a little bit more and focusing on their creativity more so than on technical prowess. That's what I would suggest. That's what I do suggest to anybody who is asking how they can take their paintings to another level. I can tell you almost all the time, I will tell them to loosen up. After looking at their paintings, there's too much effort. Too much effort. Okay, it sounds counterproductive, I know, but it's true. It really is true. Okay, keep it loose, keep it loose, keep it loose, keep it basic. Don't overwork it, and the painting will start to appear. Okay. Coming back in, starting to bring some smaller shapes in. I'm not going to overwork this. This is a quick sketch. Quick sketch means dynamic energy. Don't then go back in and overwork it. You don't want to start with a loose energy and then end up really tight, because your first strokes will not match your second, your later strokes. So keep the energy and just develop. All right, putting on these copper roofing. Always a pleasure because it's just so pretty. And you can see that fluidity is just lifting this beautiful color, which I will run down here. Who knows why? Like, what is it? I have no idea. But doesn't it look good? Isn't that what painting's about? Don't sit there thinking you need to paint every window. Allow yourself to lose that rigidity in your thinking. Unless you are painting representational art that has to have, hyperrealist sort of paintings, then that's a different kettle of fish, for sure. All right. Okay. So you can see how not being over careful actually definitely not being over careful. The subject is beginning to appear. And as the subject appears, the atmosphere will appear. If I was being too careful with the details, I would be losing my atmosphere. I would be stifling, would be probably the better word, my atmosphere, which is not what I want to do. So speed and abstraction, and that will bring confidence. Confidence will bring what? Progress. The ability to say, oh, wow, I dare do that. It looked good. I might do it again. You don't have to explain anything. Just be creative. Creative with purpose. Let's say that. So you know where you're going and you're beginning to put the right ideas on paper to get the results that you want. You see how it's coming? Let's just put a little bit of detail there. I did say 10 minutes, but I have no idea what time it is. So let's just keep going. Just pretend we don't know. We won't overwork it though, because we'll lose that energy. Okay, bring out a little bit of the shape here. Obviously not interested in stuff over there. Bring this darker color back in, create some sort of a background. Okay. All about illusions. Don't be perfect. It's boring. Create the illusion of stuff rather than the stuff. Okay. Getting there, getting there. Quick sketch. Put the energy in it. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Allow yourself to try new things. And you're going to discover a whole different level of painting that perhaps you're not tapping into because you're too focused on those results. Okay, I can tell you as a judge, that's not the way you get the better paintings. You can see it every time. All right, let's put some people on. There we go. That's one person. Okay, let's put some more people on. There's some people here. You can see how perfect my people are. But you see that I don't need perfect people. I just need the energy of what looks like a person. I need to just throw them on the paper and they will tell the story all on their own. And these people, you know what they're going to do? They're going to create more animation in my subject. They're going to lift it. Well, I could have some in white. Okay, I'll leave this one in white. Couple of heads. We do need some heads. Headless bodies roaming around the city would be a scary sight. Some shadows. My sun is coming from the left. Let's bring the shadows falling towards the right. Don't forget that. Don't forget where your light source is coming from. Easily done, particularly if you have a habit of painting just on habit, and you always do your light on one side and not the other. That's what's going to happen. You're just going to end up one day putting the shadows in the wrong direction. All right, people, people, people. I'm going to put a couple of turquoise, same color that I used up here, cobalt turquoise light. That's just going to lift a little bit, adding some details. And you're going to see that we're going to make this subject through just rapid brushwork. Hopefully, we're going to bring it to life, okay, without overworking it. Now, I definitely need a darker shadow down the bottom. Definitely need a darker value down here. This wash is almost dry. And I'd say that's going to be pretty much the last thing that we need to do. So, quick, fun, loosen up your paintings. Loosen up your paintings. Feel free to experiment, play. Don't always hope and don't always try for a result. Sometimes just paint and enjoy the process. Don't always think this painting is to go in this competition. This painting is for that reason. I want to do a good job. Just paint. Don't just paint. Just paint. All right. Here we go. Last few steps. And we'll see how it goes.